All right, let's talk about one of the biggest players in Colorado politics, an organization you might not even think of as a political powerhouse, the Colorado Education Association. From local school boards all the way to the state capitol, their influence is, well, undeniable.
And hey, if you need any proof of that influence, just look at the recent school board elections. It was pretty incredible. Across the state, in one key district after another, candidates who got the nod from teachers' unions won big. This wasn't just a coincidence. It was a wave.
So that begs the question, right? How does a group of educators become such a major force in state politics? What's their secret? Well, let's dive in and figure that out.
To really get a handle on the CEA's influence, we first have to understand just how big they are and what they see as their core mission. First off, the sheer scale of this organization is massive. The CEA is the biggest teachers union in the state, and we're talking about nearly 40,000 members. That's not just K-12 teachers either. It includes university staff and even retired educators. That large, organized group is really the foundation of their power. So why get so involved in politics? Well, according to the CEA themselves, it's pretty simple. They believe policy and politics are completely intertwined. Politicians are the ones making huge decisions about everything, from school funding to what's taught in the classroom. The union says it's their job to be in that arena, to make sure the experts, as they put it, the educators themselves, have a real voice. Okay, so that explains the why they get involved. But what about the how? How do they actually do it? Okay, so that explains the why they get involved. But what about the how? How do they actually do it? Well, the CDA uses a really clear three-part strategy to make its presence felt. Let's break down their playbook. It basically comes down to these three things. First, they endorse political candidates who they think will back their agenda. Second, they take official stances on those big statewide ballot measures you vote on. And third, they keep a very close eye on politicians already in office, basically grading them on how they vote. And here's a perfect snapshot of that playbook in action from the 2024 election. You can see they endorsed the Harris/Walz ticket for president, but look at the ballot measures. They came out strongly against Amendment 80, which was a school choice initiative. On the flip side, they supported measures on abortion rights and a new firearms tax. It really shows their focus goes way beyond just classroom issues. And the pressure doesn't stop after Election Day. To hold lawmakers' feet to the fire, the CEA puts out this legislative scorecard. Think of it like a public report card. It scores every legislator based on how they voted on bills the union cared about. It's a really powerful way to tell their members, and everyone else, who they think is a friend to public education, and who isn't. Of course, in politics, influence usually costs money. So, as you might expect, to really understand the story, we've got to follow the money. And when you look at the financials, wow, a very clear pattern emerges. This data is from the two big national teachers' unions, and the CEA is part of them. In the 2024 election cycle, their political spending went almost entirely to one party. And the numbers are just stark. 99.5% went to Democrats. Now, from the union's point of view, this makes total sense.
They see the Democratic Party as being way more aligned with their goals for public education. But as you can imagine, this one-sided spending has drawn a lot of criticism over the years. This quote here is from the Independence Institute, and get this, it's from way back in 2010. But it raises the same question people are asking today. Does that kind of spending really represent all the different political views of the tens of thousands of teachers whose dues are paying for it?
So the debate over money and politics is one thing. But recently, the conversation has shifted to something even more fundamental: the core ideology of the organization itself.
The real flashpoint happened in 2023 at the CEA's annual delegate assembly. This is where educators who are members get together and vote on what the organization should believe in. But one particular resolution they passed that year caused an absolute firestorm that went far beyond the walls of that convention.
And the resolution itself is, well, it's pretty blunt. It says that the CEA believes capitalism is an inherently exploitative system and that it's actively standing in the way of fixing huge problems like systemic racism, climate change, and inequality. I mean, that is a bold and very provocative statement to make. The reaction was, as you'd guess, immediate and completely divided. On one side, you had critics like Michael Fields who said this proves the union is just a bunch of out-of-touch activists making political statements instead of focusing on kids. But on the other side, defenders like columnist Paula Noonan said, hey, wait a minute. She argued the resolution is just stating a reality that teachers see every day, that our current system creates the very inequalities that hurt their students. So when you put all this together, the political strategies, the money, this huge ideological clash, it's pretty clear that Colorado's education system has become a real battlefield for competing ideas about what schools are even for. So what does this all mean? It really leaves us with two completely opposite stories. Is the CEA a vital defender of public education, using its power to fight for teachers and students? Or is it a partisan political machine, using its members' money to push a radical agenda that has nothing to do with the classroom? Honestly, depending on how you look at it, you could probably make a case for either one. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question here. As that line between education and politics gets blurrier and blurrier, with unions, activists, and money all fighting for control, you have to ask, who is all this really for? At the end of the day, who really wins the battle for the classroom?